We would love to support anything that's possible with code. And I think that's the future. The future is there will be 7 billion programmers and they will all program with English, whether it be scraping, whether it be making software, whether it be making apps, websites, or doing data science and statistics. All of us will be programmers because we'll be programming with English. The reason Julius exists and the reason Julius even has a chance of success and the reason thousands of people use Julius every day is because we're obsessed about two things. One is building an AI native product. And the second thing is focusing on accuracy.
Hi, I'm Craig Smith, and this is Eye on AI. In this episode, I speak with Rahul Sonwalkar, the founder and CEO of Julius AI. Julius is an AI-powered data scientist that helps users analyze datasets, create visualizations, and gain insights using natural language. Rahul shares his journey from learning to code to building Julius, which has already amassed over 500,000 users. We discuss the challenges of AI code generation, how Julius compares to other AI coding tools, and the future of programming with AI assistants. I hope you find the conversation as amazing as I did. Hi, I wanted to jump in and give a shout out to our sponsor this week, TrialKey.ai. The market leader, AI-driven clinical trial design optimization and predictor that improves trial design and execution. I recently had TrialKey on the podcast. I encourage anybody who's interested in clinical trials to go back and listen. With over 90% accuracy based on precision, recall, TrialKey.ai predicts the success of clinical trials more precisely than any other tool on the market. TrialKey.ai contains the world's first clinical trial design simulator, which allows you to manipulate a trial's design to find the best combination for most probable success. TrialKey.ai pulls data from over 350,000 clinical trials, inclusive of medical devices, alternative therapies, and non-randomized drug-controlled trials. Pivotal clinical trials often exceed $48 million in cost, yet only 10% of pivotal trials succeed. TrialKey aims to address this issue by helping companies improve trial design with AI. A 2011 study found that 60% of trial protocols needed amendments, with a third preventable through better design planning. On average, completed protocols undergo 2.3 amendments, each causing significant delays and costs around $500,000 each. AI provides clinical researchers and pharmaceutical companies with in-depth variable analysis and a clinical trial simulator that improves trial design, execution, and drug mechanism of action. Leverage AI-powered clinical trials to accelerate medical breakthroughs at TrialKey.ai. Maximize clinical trial success while minimizing costs. Book a demo at TrialKey.ai or sign up for free. Transform your clinical trial outcomes and shape the future of healthcare. Again, schedule a demo at TrialKey, that's TrialKey.ai, or sign up for free. Elevate your trial success and drive innovation in healthcare. Okay, so I usually start by having you introduce yourself, give your educational background, how you got into Julius, how you started Julius. I'm also curious where you got the name Julius. But yeah, so why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Totally. So I'm Rahul. I'm the founder and CEO of Julius AI. Julius is an AI data scientist that helps you analyze datasets, create data visualizations, and get insights from your data with just simple English. We launched Julius about 8 months ago, and since then have crossed around 500,000 users. Over 1.5 million data visualizations created. And as of this morning, users are using Julius, where Julius is writing 1 million lines of code and executing that code every 48 hours. My story is I moved to the US as a teenager to study computer science. And I was really excited about the potential of technology, of startups, and how you can impact and change people's lives in really meaningful ways. So I moved to the US, I moved to Texas, and I went to college at UT Dallas, where I got a scholarship to study computer science. And while I was at the university, I got into the scene of going to hackathons and building projects on the weekends. And through that scene, I was able to meet people who were building things that were technically really hard, but they were primarily building them just because they were really cool. At my first hackathon, I met this guy, and he was trying to write a script to automate the dinosaur game. When you lose your internet on Chrome, there's this like dinosaur that shows up, and you can play that game. And he was trying to write a script to just automate that. And to me, that was, first of all, really cool, but also completely pointless. Um, and through that, I got into hacking, writing, software, making apps just for the sake of building something really cool. And eventually, I met people who referred me to startups in Silicon Valley. And I ended up working at companies like Uber, where I did some machine learning on the pricing team, and at Facebook, where I did some machine learning on the misinformation team. After 2 years of working at companies, I realized that I could have a much larger impact working on something of my own. And I kept building different ideas that I wanted for myself on the side, starting with an app for podcasts to all the way to Julius. Julius is about 8 months old, and we didn't expect it to resonate so strongly with our users. Um, you asked me how we came up with the name Julius. So I'm obsessed with history, particularly Roman history. And when I started the company, I incorporated the company as Caesar Labs and kept playing on the Roman theme until we landed on the idea for Julius, and it was pretty obvious to just go with Julius Caesar.
Okay. Well, yeah. Where did you learn to code? Was that in high school or even earlier? And you did a BS in computer science. Did you go on to do any graduate study?
Yeah, I did a BS in computer science. I learned to code mostly in my free time in my senior year of high school because that's around the time I watched this movie, Social Network. It's on the founding of Facebook. And to me, that seemed really cool that, a bunch of 19-year-old kids can build a piece of software that is used by billions of people. So I started learning how to code mostly through the internet. And initially, I was not learning the right things because I was trying to do a textbook way of learning code where I pick up all the concepts and then try to learn all of them. It wasn't until college, freshman year of college, when I got introduced to the hackathon community. And when I realized it's much easier to learn hard things or things you don't know if you pick up a project you want to do with that technology. So, oh, I want to learn front end. Oh, let me make a website that does, this cool thing for me. And in the process of learning to make that website, you start learning things around um, on front end technologies, how to write code, how to deploy it, where do you even host a website, how do you even get a domain name, what is a domain name. So I sort of learned most of it through projects.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And then you said that you were building apps. Are any of them still around?
Unfortunately, not. The only app that's around today is Julius AI. But in COVID, I was pretty into podcasts, and still I am. And thanks for having me today. But one of the things I realized about podcasts was the podcast is a really good piece of information and content. And then when you go into the comments on YouTube, there's additional discussions happening where people, share interesting facts and interesting tidbits that didn't exist for other platforms outside of YouTube. So my first ever idea was, hey, can and we built a comment section for podcasts, and it was called podcastcommons.com.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so let's talk about Julius. This started as a project or was it a business right off the bat? Can you talk about how you came around to that?
Totally. So me and the Julius team, we are really excited about the potential of AIs writing code. In fact, Jensen talked about this on his in his GTC just now, about how AIs will write pretty much all of our code in the future. But we had that insight, 2 years ago, and we kept trying to build some product or solution that could enable people to do that. Like, what if we take the definition of a programmer and completely expand it? A programmer is not somebody who is just in an IDE writing a bunch of lines of code and solving, these system problems. It's a biologist who has a ton of data on their hands and wants to do computations. It's an accountant who is trying to crunch a bunch of numbers using code. And the definition we thought of a programmer is going to expand a lot. And we had that insight. It took us a long time to talk to users and iterate and arrive at something that actually worked and resonated with people. So we started with um, this concept of, can we get these models to write all of our SQL for us? SQL is this thing that a lot of business people need to use, and we attempted to do that by creating massive data sets and databases and getting a natural language query engine on top of it to work. And soon we realized two things. One is, when people have SQL queries, they don't really change them. Once you have a query, it kind of works. Second thing is that these models are a lot better at Python than they are at SQL. And with Python, you you get this whole ecosystem of modules and packages that a programmer can leverage to do machine learning, to do statistics, to build applications. All of that ecosystem is built for you. So after a bunch of talking to users and shipping different ideas, we arrived at Julius. And the insight there was, Python is really powerful. And if we can create these code sandboxes and take the best LLMs and put them on top of those code sandboxes, in a way, give an AI its own computer and let it write code, run code to do different things for you, that suddenly is really powerful. So we built and launched that, and we called it Julius. And within the first or second day, we knew this is something people really wanted, and it solved a real problem.
Yeah, that first of all, how did people become aware of it? I mean, how do you market it to users or get beta testers and that sort of thing? And two, this is a problem that everyone's been chasing. I mean, DeepMind with Alpha Code, and certainly Meta, Amazon with Code Whisperer, GitHub Copilot. And the problem has been that while you can do code completion for a coder to review and accept, these systems hallucinate too much, even in very minor ways that make it impossible to code complete programs beyond very simple programs, or as with Alpha Code, with very strict parameters. So how did you guys deal with that?
Totally. So your first question was, how did we?
How did you get the beta testers? Or you say that you had a big response, but there's a lot of stuff out there to get people to look at.
Totally. There's a lot of noise out there, and especially I feel like, in a way, benchmarks are being gamed today for marketing reasons, which is quite disappointing because it takes away the hard work a lot of really good researchers are doing. But in terms of how we got our early users, we had this strategy of using ChatGPT's plugin store to validate the ideas that we're building. So we built a variety of plugins in the ChatGPT plugin store. Everything from an AI software engineer to an AI code reviewer to an AI data analyst and an AI data scientist. And we would build these plugins, we would put it out there. and we would see how do people use these plugins. And honestly, most of the plugins got no usage because it wasn't really a problem people were looking to solve. So the AI software engineer plugin, for example, people would install the plugin and they would ask it things like make me an iPhone app or make me a website for a recipe. And it would attempt to do that, but the models aren't really there yet. And making an app isn't really a problem that people are looking to solve immediately. But what was really clear, besides the plugins that got no usage or people didn't retain at all, that the data scientist and the data analyst plugins was something that people were using pretty heavily. And we had very generic names for these, like AI data analyst and data scientist. And within the first or second week, we realized, okay, so the market or the use case where there is a fit right now and what the models can do right now, it seems to be the data analysis and data science aspect. So let's go actually build a better experience for our users. Let's understand what they're trying to do, and can we build the best product out there for that use case. So we basically got beta users from there. How do we go from there to 500,000? Well, for some time, the initial users came from the ChatGPT plugin store, and that helped us validate the idea of what we were doing. And after that, what has worked pretty heavily for us is building a community of users online, so on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and then constantly sharing our progress and all the features that we're adding and all the fixes we're making to the core product. So constantly sharing that pretty much every week, sometimes multiple times a week, um, inspires our users to use Julius more. It reminds them, hey, Julius exists, and this is a live product. This is only going to get better from here. So I should give it a try. And it helped us from this community of users. And it worked in a really interesting way. So one of our users, his name is Professor Kerry Back. He has been a user, I believe, since the first or second week since we launched. And he's a paid user. And I didn't even know he existed. He just knew about Julius and he used Julius. Then, come this spring semester, he reaches out to us and says, hey guys, I've been a Julius user for 5 months now, and I would love to teach a whole class with it. So he is teaching a whole class at Rice University. It's called AI powered financial analysis. And we actually flew to Rice to sit in the class. And it was really surreal seeing an entire class being taught by a Julius user to a whole class of Julius users. So we, sort of using those early beta users to validate the solution and the problem, then engaging with our users and using social media to spread the word. And then the third step was the word of mouth that came out of it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. On the question of how do you solve the code generation problem, and then we'll talk about how the code generation fits into the product. But how did you solve that code generation problem, or is it solved?
Totally. It is solvable today for a subset of the problem. So if you define a subset of the whole problem, which is AIs will write all of our code in the future and do all of our coding, which is true, and that future is going to come. But where the models are good today, it's on a very narrow areas. So what we do is we focus on building the right experience and the product for those use cases. So I just gave you an example of this class of business students learning AI powered financial analysis, and they can do financial analysis on Julius, upload their data sets and the Excel files, and have the AI write code to do that. There's some other cases where a professor at Yale School of Medicine is using Julius for biostatistics and doing his research. There's a CEO of a hot tub company in the Midwest. He uses Julius to manage his sales data and order data. And all these use cases are related to data and data analysis. And that's what we are focused on. And because we define the focus area, it allows us to iron out all the wrinkles and all the hiccups, and obsessively focused on, okay, where did the code go wrong this time, and how can we prevent this from happening again? A combination of that, then using several different models for their strengths. So we, heavily use GPT-4. We also use models like Claude, um, Command R from Cohere, Gemini from Google, and right now we are in the process of rolling out Llama 3 um, for a variety of use cases. And the way we do this is we take one model, you get it to write the first piece of code, and then run that code in a VM in the cloud. So the code gets executed. Now, sometimes that code doesn't compile because it has errors. And when that happens, we in a loop try to fix that error using either the same model or a different model. We use a mixture of experts approach where we consult different models, give it the code, give it the error, and say, hey, what went wrong here? What do you think the error is, and what the fix is in this code? And what that does is it increases variance. It's kind of like asking your friend or your colleague to proofread your work. They're able to find issues in your work that you usually look over or look past. And it's sort of like using a variety of different models to review the code, fix it, and then run it again. And then you can sort of do it in a loop until the code compiles and it actually gives you what you want. There is a trade-off between speed and how long you want to do that. And we always play with that sliding window of like how often or how long can we retry before the user gets frustrated. But usually it's within a minute or two the user gets to see an output.
Yeah, just on that latency, do you have a sense I mean, how long does that process take, that looping to refine or fix bugs in the code in the background? Because from the user's point of view, maybe we should start go back and explain what Julius does. It's an interface for tabular data, right, for analyzing tabular data. Is that right?
Yes, it's an AI data analyst or AI data scientist.
And so, give us a use case. And is it a plugin, or do you have your own spreadsheet in the product?
Yeah, great question. So if you have an Excel file or a CSV file, sometimes users even upload images and PDF data. You can upload any data to Julius and have the AI analyze it for you. It's better if the data is in a tabular format, but we are working pretty actively on making unstructured data also queryable and making a lot of progress on that. What's happening under the hood is when you give it a data, think of it as your data analyst. You would give your data to a data analyst, and the data analyst would download the file, go to their computer, write some code, write some scripts. Either it's Python or SQL or any programming language that they're good at, and query the questions you ask it. So let's say you give it data of a scientific experiment, a million rows of data, and you say, can you perform regression on this and find me what are the trends in this data? This is a pretty open-ended question, but the AI will basically take your million lines of data, write code to first take it apart, understand what's in the data, what are the different outliers, what are the different columns, what is the unique values in each column, and then proceed to write a regression on top of that data. And then run that regression again to give you the output you asked for. Usually, to a human, this would take a little longer than what it would take Julius today. And Julius is always available. And it's nearly instant compared to most humans. And what's really useful to a lot of our users is they're not coders, they're scientists, they are financial analysts, they're like business analysts, and their expertise is their domain. And they're able to leverage Julius as the coder to perform all this statistics, all this data science and data analysis for them, as long as they ask, simple questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when they ask a question in natural language, uh, that question is sent to GPT-4 for uh, parsing into a series of steps. Is that right? And then each GPT-4 writes code for each step, and then that code is executed. And if it doesn't compile, then uh, it, what happens there? It's sent to Llama 3 or sent to our commander, whatever.
Yeah, totally. So we have a meta planning step where if you ask it for tasks like regression or ANOVA analysis, that task requires a series of steps. You probably want to first load the data into memory on that computer. Then you want to break it down, understand what's in the data, do some data cleaning, do some find some outliers, find some unique values, and then you dive into your actual ANOVA analysis or regression analysis or whatever questions you have about your data. So we have this meta step which comes up with a series of steps in the plan, and then usually that model is GPT-4, and then each step correlates to some code, and that code gets written, executed, and ideally the code compiles without any errors. But what a lot of our users who use tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft's Excel Copilot, those people come to us and tell us those things barely work. They're riddled with errors. And what we're focused on, as you put it, is code generation is really hard to get right. And we are able to identify and collect metrics on what are the most common errors and how do we prevent those errors upfront, either a combination of prompting or through rule-based engines, or a third step, which is using a mixture of experts, where you run that code, the code compiles or doesn't compile. If you have an error, you pass it through a variety of different models, and that stack gets changed often. So I can't really share more on what the stack is today, because by the time the viewers, let's say a year from now, it could be a completely different stack. But we give it to a variety of different models, and we say, hey, here's the code and here's the error. Can you fix the errors in this code? What are the things we can do to recover from these errors? And sometimes the AI is able to recover from it instantly. Sometimes it can't, because of a dependency issue, because of data issues. There's a variety of issues. And if there are certain issues that are on the user's end, how do we build the experience to surface that back to the user? We tell the user, hey, you want to find your highest paying customers, but there is no customer column in the data. Are you sure you want to maybe add that column when you export from your CRM? And how do we surface that back to the user is another focus area for us.
Right. And then how often does the code just never compile? That or that the loop becomes because when AutoGPT first came out, on GitHub, I played around with it, and you know, I'm not a coder, so when it would hit an error, I'd put the error in ChatGPT or GPT-4, and it would give me a fix, and I'd put it back into the virtual studio, and then it would come up with another error. And I realized what it was doing is the fixes, you were just going down like a rabbit hole of one error compounding another error, and pretty soon you're way off in the weeds. So how often does it not compile ever? Or how often does it what's the longest that it will take if it's fixable to finally compile? Are you talking about 10 minutes or an hour? Yeah.
Totally. So that is something that depends heavily on the task. One of the things is sometimes our users paste a link to Amazon and say, can you go scrape all products from Amazon? And what Amazon does is that Amazon will pretty heavily prevent bots and scraping. Like that's a huge part of their business. And even if the AI writes code to do that, and it will fail to scrape all products from Amazon, it will get an error and it will try to recover from that error. And that's a kind of error which is sort of nearly impossible to recover from. But when we focus on heavily on the use case of data and data science and data analysis, we're able to squash out most of the common errors actually. We have made so much progress on that front, from collecting a ton of metrics on what are the common errors, why do they even emerge, how do we prevent them upfront using rules or a mixture of experts, and squash those errors out. In terms of how often does it happen, about 70% of the code that the AI writes compiles cleanly as of today in the first try. Um, that means 30% of the times there is a compilation error in the first time, which is pretty low compared to most so-called agents out there, because we're focused on narrowly on solving this real problem that a lot of people have. In most cases, the AI will continue to retry for up to 10 minutes, um, and then surface, if it doesn't succeed in those rare cases, we surface that back to the user so the user can make a decision on, hey, like it's not possible to scrape Amazon, but it is possible to do financial forecasting using Julius.
Yeah. And then, well, that's interesting about scraping. So this does more than just analyze data in a spreadsheet. Is it, what's the range of tools of not tasks that it can cover?
Totally. We would love to support anything that's possible with code. And I think that's the future. The future is there will be 7 billion programmers and they will all program with English. Whether it be scraping, whether it be making software, whether it be making apps, websites, or doing data science and statistics. All of us will be programmers because we will be programming with English. Today, we're narrowly focused because that's what solves a user problem immediately. And we have, just in a short amount of time, 500,000 users who are looking to solve that problem with us. Um, as the model capabilities advance, more and more use cases will open up. So scraping is something that sort of works today. And one of our users, he uses Julius to collect data from the internet for his own research. He's a professor, and he and his lab use Julius to collect data from sites that don't prevent scraping. They're open to scraping and collecting data. He uses Julius to automate that data collection process and collect all that data, structure it, and analyze it. So there's a variety of use cases.
Yeah. And in that case, in the scraping case, you're asking Julius, you're giving it URLs to go to these URLs, or do you give it a more general uh, instruction? Go on the internet and scrape, you know, all the chili recipes you can find, or something like that. I mean, how specific do you have to be in what you're asking Julius for?
Today, you would need to give it a link. Um, Julius doesn't use a web browser yet, but that's on the roadmap, and hopefully in the next few months we will have a web browser built in, and it will be able to do more open-ended tasks, or go from a link to a different link by finding relevant links on that page. Um, all of that is coming, but we're big believers in understanding deeply what are the model capabilities today, making an experience that's fast, reliable, and accurate for those model capabilities today. And then as those model capabilities improve, build further capabilities of the product to serve that for our users. So that's coming soon.
How does this compare to Devon, which made so much noise when it was first announced, and has sort of gone quiet since then? It's gotten a lot of people criticizing its initial videos and what it can actually do. It's very restricted in who can get access. How do you compare what you guys are doing to Devon? That's one question. And the other question, which I asked you last time we spoke, how do you compete with Microsoft, which has, uh, you know, direct access to the open AI models and is integrating them into Excel?
Totally. And I think both are very valid questions. I'll talk about Devon first. I think we're better than Devon hands down. What the Devon team is discovering today, we discovered this 8 months ago when we built an AI software engineer. We discovered two things. One is users don't wake up in the morning wanting to make software. They wake up in the morning wanting to solve a problem. And then really understanding what problems are solvable with the model capabilities today. As you can see, the Devon team had a really cool demo, and a lot of people questioned the demo and how factually accurate it was. With Julius, we have nothing to hide. Julius is public access. Anyone can go to julius.ai and start using it and test it for yourself. We are pretty open about what the models and the Julius product can do today and where we want it to go in the future. One of the things that a lot of Devon and Devon like startups are going to run into is when you focus on solving a problem, it turns out that the addressable users for coding are are in millions and billions. It's everyone from scientists to finance people to business people to researchers. All these people need the power of code, and AI can solve those problems for them if they focus on the problems. So one of the things I've actually talked to several Devon users, and what I noticed when I met them and I looked at what things they've tried with Devon, it was things like make me a website for my recipe, or make me this cool app. And Devon would try that for 6 hours, 7 hours, and then sort of fizzle out. And none of these users I met, they actually tried to give it a second prompt because it was more about the gimmick than a problem they wanted to solve on the hand. With Julius, we are focused on the power of code and how much of an unlock it is for everyone. But we don't lead with that. We lead with the problem. Julius can do your computations. Julius can do data science and data analysis for you. So I wish the team well, and I think they will eventually figure out the idea maze like we did. But Julius actually has users. There's a million lines of code being written every 48 hours on Julius that's actually impacting people's life and giving them something useful. Um, this is more code than what Devin writes. We have 500,000 users and over 1.5 million data visualizations generated on Julius. So um, that's what I think about Devin. In terms of your second question was how do we think about Microsoft? That's always in the back of my mind, but I'm not too worried about Microsoft because we launched way after Microsoft introduced Copilot and announced Copilot. There's no reason Julia should exist because Microsoft, they have this massive distribution, they have this massive brand recognition, and as you put it, they have access to these models that they could be using. But the reason Julius exists, and the reason Julius even has a chance of success, and the reason thousands of people use Julius every day, is because we're obsessed about two things. One is building an AI native product, and the second thing is focusing on accuracy. So, what does an AI native product mean? AI native product is we are not taking an existing product and trying to shove models into that product, which It seems like Microsoft is taking Excel or PowerPoint or Word and trying to put Excel into it. What's becoming very obvious in today's world is that AI native products are winning. ChatGPT is an AI native product. Midjourney is an AI native product. Julius is an AI native product. It's products built ground up with AI as the primary experience, right? ChatGPT is not AI put into an existing product, or Midjourney is not AI put into an existing product. In a similar way, we are not taking Excel and putting AI into it. We are saying, imagine if people had data or spreadsheets and they wanted an AI to analyze them and visualize them and give them insights or do statistics. What would that experience look like? And then how would they interact with that product? And what would they want out of that product? And after talking to hundreds and hundreds of users and building and iterating and getting the accuracy right, we were able to build and grow Julius to where we are. So I think AI native products have a clear advantage. Another example that comes to my mind is perplexity. Right? You can take AI and put it onto existing search products like Google or Bing, or you could think from first principle. What does AI native information seeking look like? And Arvind and team have done an awesome job building that AI native and AI first experience where you have an answer, you have a question, you can seek answers using perplexity. If you have data or spreadsheets and you want to process them and get insights out of them, you can use Julius.
Could you share your screen and just give a demo of a simple use case?
Yep, absolutely. So, awesome. Let me pull up my data set real quick.
And while you're doing that, is this you said that it's free to use? What is the business model? I mean, is it free for certain features, or is it a sort of rate limited that you can use it for so many tokens and then you have to pay? I mean, how does that work?
Totally. So all users get 15 messages with the AI every month. And honestly, for a lot of users, that's enough. They're able to get their monthly work out of those 15 messages. If you're a power user and if you want to use some of our advanced features like workflows or advanced reasoning, Julius offers a premium version where you get unlimited messages and access to the advanced features. You can also toggle between different models like GPT-4, Claude, Gemini, etc. in Julius.
And is there an API for people that want to build the code generation engine into their products?
Great question. We do get requests for the API quite a lot, and we would love to offer one. As of today, we are not prioritizing an API, but we're hoping to have one out.
Right. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry.
Let me take this data set of US agricultural exports from 2011. And what I'm doing is I'm uploading this data to Julius. And this is a spreadsheet structured data set. And what I can do is I can select certain rows or select part of the data for the AI to analyze. But in our case, I'm going to select the whole data and I'm going to say, can you load this data set? Now, what's happening under the hood is Julius connects to a Python environment, kind of like a computer in the cloud, where it can write code and do the analysis for us. We have launched not just Python, we have also launched R in Julius. So you should be able to get the AI to do R programming for you without having to know R. So in this case, what happened is the AI, I asked it to load the data, gave it a file, it wrote the code for us, did the analysis. Now, a lot of our users are non-programmers, and they can validate what the AI did by simply looking at the text description of the code. And you can validate the logic in the logical steps to understand whether if that's what you wanted, and if not, you can give it follow-up instructions. So in this case, I'm going to ask it, what are the 5 states that produce the most beef. Visualize them. And and the AI should be able to write code to look at the beef production and um, process that code. So it's writing this code, it's going to run it in this cloud environment to actually see if the code compiles. And if it doesn't, recover from its errors. Great. As you can see, the AI actually wrote the code and um, ran it, and it ran fine. And it created this data visualization for us. There's over 1 million lines of this code being written every 48 hours and executed by the AI. And sorry, go ahead.
You can then copy the visualization or copy the code and use it elsewhere. Is that right?
Exactly. So you can download this visualization, put it in your presentation, in your report. You can run this code on your computer. You can export this whole chat as a Jupyter notebook. There's a variety of things you can do.
Yeah. Wow. Uh, and could you show a simple scraping example?
Yeah. I think we can go to a Wikipedia page for the Corona satellite, and we can say, um, can you, here's a link. Can you find out when the Corona satellite was launched? And my hope here is that, and this is something we're trying to actively get better at, so we'll see if it succeeds. But my hope here is that the AI is able to scrape the information from the internet and is able to tell us it was launched in June 1959, um, which is correct. It was launched in June 1959. And we're still trying to get better at it, but hopefully a lot of researchers and academics are able to use Julius to collect data from the internet to do their own research studies.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. Aravind Srinivas, the founder of, or one of the founders of Perplexity, told me about you. Uh, and I had not heard about you independently. Devin kind of hit the public, or at least the computer science world with a splash, and everybody knows what Devin is. What do you attribute that brand recognition to with Devin? And are you? How do you? I mean, it's. I'm just surprised people aren't talking about Julius.
They should talk about Julius. We have been really heads down building and talking to our users. If you ask me what my calendar looks like for the last 6-7 months, it's mostly just writing code and talking to users. And we have grown to 500,000 users completely organically without making much noise. And that's because, our users aren't reading the New York Times, or they aren't on TechCrunch talking about fundraising. They're Our users are actually, in the lab doing their research, or actually in the business world using Julius for something useful. So I agree, we don't have as much of a hype as Devin does. I hope people talk about Julius more. But I think that's probably a reason of because we haven't done much marketing. We have just been, heads down talking to users. And Arvind is a great friend and a great supporter, and he has been, a great mentor to me since we launched Julius, um, helping us go from 0 users to where we are today, all through word of mouth. Some of the other things that Julius can do. An example of this was one of our users, Paulo. Shout out to Paulo. He tweeted about us because he had this long PDF that contained a lot of text in Italian, and he wanted to use an AI to translate that text into English. Now, he first tried ChatGPT, then he tried Gemini, then he tried Claude. All of them kind of failed. Then he uploaded the PDF to Julius, and Julius did it. And what was interesting to us is when we talked to him like, hey, do you mind sharing the chat link? We would love to see why we did such a good job at it, but all these other popular AI tools failed. And what it seemed like was because we're obsessively focused on data extraction from documents. A lot of our users upload PDF to Julius because PDFs have tables in them. Um, and because we're collecting a lot of metrics on where the errors happen and where there's a bad experience, we were able to identify many months ago that we need a better PDF parsing system and data extraction system. Um, and we built that into Julius. And it happened to just serve him in a really interesting way where all the other AI tools failed him. And Julius was able to do that. If you know Vercel, Vercel is like a $2.5 billion company. And the CEO of Vercel tweeted about Julius overnight. And it just went viral. And turns out he was trying to post a video on Twitter, but his video needed to be a certain dimension to be posted on Twitter, and Twitter wouldn't let him post the video. So he first went to ChatGPT and said, hey, here's a video file. Can you make it resize to this dimension? And ChatGPT tried and it failed. Then he went to Julius. He uploaded that file, and Julius did it instantly because turns out there's this Python module called FFmpeg that allows you to process and resize and structure video files. And Julius, because it does code generation and code extraction, it was able to run that code in Python and resize this video file within a minute. So it was really interesting that it served him that in that way because honestly, we never thought somebody would use Julius for that. So if you have a use case with code, you should give Julius a try because Python is really universal. It can do everything from PDF and document processing to video processing to data science and data analysis and statistics. Where we're going, so we're launching R in Julius, which is our second programming language after Python. A lot of statisticians came to us and said, "Hey, R has this ecosystem of modules that we would love to use in Julius," and a lot of these guys are epidemiologists and geologists, and they have massive amounts of data that they want to work with. And they would like it to be in R so that they can publish it in their research. So we said, okay, can we make R kernels work? And then we sat down, looked at our code infrastructure, and sort of made R work in Julius. And we just rolled that out.
Wow. Yeah. I have a personal question on the PDF upload. My mother-in-law, who has passed away, was a writer. She was Japanese. So I have some of her books I've had them scanned into PDF format. And I tried using ChatGPT and Claude and I don't remember a bunch of different models to translate it, but the columns are vertical, and it just confuses the AI. So you end up with garbled translations. Would Julius take that instruction that translate this from Japanese, but the writing is top to bottom in columns rather than left to right in lines? Would you think it would be able to do that?
I think so. I think we should give it a try.
Yeah, I will
Perhaps
after this call. Yeah.
yes, totally. And one thing we could do is split if it's a really long PDF, for the book, like a few hundred pages, you might want to split it into like 50 pages at a time. And Julius might actually be able to split the PDF for you too. You can just tell it, hey, write some code and split the PDF into 4 parts for me of 50 pages each, and then make a new chat, upload that PDF, and then give it that instruction. I think I have a hunch that it should work.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give it a try and let you know. Uh, okay, Rahul. Yeah, this is fascinating, and I hope people listening will go out and give Julius a try. I know a lot of people have been sort of frustrated by code generation tools, and there's a lot of skepticism that AI code generation will ever really work. But I mean, particularly after Jensen Huang's comments about, kids no longer need to learn to code. Um, there was a lot of discussion, but you've sort of renewed my optimism.
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm super excited for the future. It's only going to get better from here, and we think we will have 7 million programmers in the world very soon.
yeah, yeah. Are you planning on building your own foundation model to do this stuff, or are you going to? I mean, with the open source movement, do you think there's going to be more and more powerful open source models that you can use?
Totally, there definitely will be a lot of open source models that we can use and work with, and we are working with Llama 3 right now. Our goal is to deliver our users the best quality code generation and code execution, whether that means using models that somebody else built or using models that we built or we fine tuned. We are pretty unbiased towards that. What we really care about is giving our users the best code generation and code execution.
That's it for this episode. I want to thank Rahul for his time. If you want to read a transcript of today's conversation, you can find one on our website, Eye on AI. That's EYE-OAI. And remember, the singularity may not be near, but AI is changing our world. So pay attention. I wanted to jump in and give a shout out to our sponsor this week, TrialKey.ai, the market leader, AI-driven clinical trial design optimization and predictor that improves trial design and execution. I recently had TrialKey on the podcast. I encourage anybody who's interested in clinical trials to go back and listen. With over 90% accuracy based on precision, recall, TrialKey.ai predicts the success of clinical trials more precisely than any other tool on the market. TrialKey.ai contains the world's first clinical trial design simulator, which allows you to manipulate a trial's design to find the best combination for most probable success. TrialKey.ai pulls data from over 350,000 clinical trials, inclusive of medical devices, alternative therapies, and non-randomized drug control trials. Pivotal clinical trials often exceed $48 million in cost, yet only 10% of pivotal trials succeed. TrialKey aims to address this issue by helping companies improve trial design with AI. A 2011 study found that 60% of trial protocols needed amendments, with a third preventable through better design planning. On average, completed protocols undergo 2.3 amendments, each causing significant delays and costs around $500,000 each. AI provides clinical researchers and pharmaceutical companies with in-depth variable analysis and a clinical trial simulator that improves trial design, execution, and drug mechanism of action. Leverage AI-powered clinical trials to accelerate medical breakthroughs at TrialKey.ai. Maximize clinical trial success while minimizing costs. Book a demo at TrialKey.ai or sign up for free. Transform your clinical trial outcomes and shape the future of healthcare. Again, schedule a demo at TrialKey, that's TrialKey.ai, or sign up for free. Elevate your trial success and drive innovation in healthcare.